Welcome to your deep dive, a personalized deep dive into the latest cybersecurity and AI research.
Fresh from the Security Archive, published today.
Yeah, published today, February 18th, 2025.
It's,
A lot to cover.
we do, from vulnerabilities in large language models to some groundbreaking new approaches to cybersecurity.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be following these fields. The pace of innovation is incredible,
Right.
but it also means that staying informed is more important than ever.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that caught my eye right away was this idea of jailbreaking large language models. It's both fascinating and a little unsettling. I think this idea that you can trick these powerful AI models into misbehaving.
It really highlights the ongoing challenge of ensuring AI safety.
Yeah,
Researchers have discovered some new techniques for jailbreaking, including one called CCJA,
CCJ?
or context-coherent jailbreak attacks.
Okay.
These attacks are particularly effective because they generate harmful outputs that still make sense within the given context. So it's not just generating random gibberish.
Right.
It's crafting outputs that are both harmful and coherent.
Exactly.
That seems like a real game changer. What kind of impact could this have in the real world, I mean?
Well, imagine a customer service chatbot
Right.
that's been jailbroken to provide misleading information or even spread misinformation.
Oh, wow.
Or a content moderation system that's been tricked into allowing harmful content to slip through the cracks.
Yeah, no, that's
The potential consequences are significant.
definitely concerning. So are researchers looking into ways to defend against these attacks?
Absolutely, they're exploring various approaches,
Okay.
including robust defense mechanisms and ongoing research into LLM safety.
Uh-huh.
For example, one paper explores a multi-turn jailbreak attack framework called Reasoning Augmented Conversation, or RACE,
Race.
which uses the LLM's own reasoning abilities against it.
Oh, interesting.
Understanding these attack vectors is crucial for developing effective defenses.
It's like a constant arms race.
It is.
Between those trying to exploit these models and those trying to protect them, it makes you wonder what this all means for the future of AI.
It underscores the need for responsible AI development. We need to consider the potential for misuse from the very beginning and build in safeguards to prevent these kinds of attacks.
For sure. Well, speaking of attacks, another topic that caught my attention was backdoor attacks. It sounds like something straight out of a spy movie.
It's a very apt analogy.
Yeah.
Backdoor attacks involve embedding hidden functionality within an AI model that can be triggered by specific inputs. Imagine someone building a secret entrance into an otherwise secure building.
So it's like a sleeper agent waiting for the right signal to activate and wreak havoc. What's particularly concerning about this research?
Well, researchers have discovered a new backdoor attack called
Reveal.
which is particularly insidious
Okay.
because it targets the data collection phase of model training. This means the attacker doesn't even need access to the model after it's been trained to trigger the backdoor.
So the backdoor could be lurking undetected within the model, and we wouldn't even realize it until it's triggered. That's a scary thought.
It highlights the importance of data security and integrity throughout the AI lifecycle, from data collection and pre-processing to model training and deployment. If the data itself is compromised, it can undermine the entire system.
Right. It's like building a house on a shaky foundation.
Yeah.
No matter how strong the walls are, the whole structure is vulnerable. What are researchers doing to counter these backdoor attacks?
They're exploring various approaches,
Okay.
including comprehensive benchmarks for evaluating and improving defenses. One paper introduces Backdoor DM, the first comprehensive benchmark for backdoor learning in diffusion models. This will be crucial for testing and strengthening defenses against these types of attacks.
Are there any other defense strategies being explored?
Yes, researchers are also investigating dynamic defense mechanisms
Okay.
that use direct model editing to neutralize harmful behaviors while preserving model utility. One example is Delman, which shows promising results in mitigating the impact of backdoor attacks.
It sounds like there's a lot of work being done to stay ahead of these evolving threats, but what about the implications for intellectual property? I mean, with these powerful AI models that can learn from and generate creative content, how do we protect the rights of creators?
That's a great question, and one that's increasingly relevant as AI models become more sophisticated.
For sure.
There's a growing concern about unauthorized use of knowledge bases and training datasets in the development of retrieval-augmented LLMs.
So someone could potentially train an AI on a copyrighted dataset without permission and then profit from the model's outputs. That seems like a recipe for legal battles.
It definitely raises some complex legal and ethical questions,
Yeah.
but researchers are exploring various approaches to protecting intellectual property in this new landscape.
Like what? Can you give us some examples?
Absolutely. One paper explores a method called dataset protection via watermarked canaries. which involves inserting specially crafted documents into datasets to detect unauthorized use.
So it's like embedding a secret message that can only be decoded by those who know the key. That's a clever approach. What other methods are being explored?
Another paper focuses on towards copyright protection for knowledge bases and proposes using harmless copyright protection methods
Okay.
that don't manipulate the LLM's output but embed distinct verification behaviors. It's about finding ways to protect intellectual property without hindering the development and deployment of beneficial AI technologies.
It's an interesting balancing act.
Yeah,
Protecting creativity while also fostering innovation. You know, one of the things that caught my eye was this paper on graph learning. It sounds like a whole new way of looking at security data.
it is. Graph learning involves using graphs to model and analyze complex relationships in cybersecurity data, which can lead to significant improvements in threat detection.
Uh-huh.
Imagine mapping out all the connections in a social network. Each person is a node, and the lines connecting them represent relationships. Now apply that to cybersecurity data users, devices, applications, files. All those elements become nodes, and their interactions form the edge of the graph,
Okay.
right?
So by analyzing this network, we can start to identify patterns and anomalies
Right.
that might indicate a security threat. It's like connecting the dots to see the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Right.
And this paper on recent advances in malware detection explores the use of graph neural networks and explainability techniques for malware detection.
Can you explain how graph neural networks are used in this context?
So graph neural networks are a type of machine learning model specifically designed for analyzing graphs. In the context of malware detection, they can learn to recognize patterns of malicious behavior
Right.
based on the relationships and interactions between different elements in the network.
So instead of relying on traditional signature-based approaches, we're using AI to spot those subtle connections and behaviors that might indicate malicious intent.
Right.
That seems much more effective, especially with the constantly evolving nature of malware.
It is, and what's particularly interesting is that graph learning can help us understand not just what the malware is doing,
Right.
but why. This deeper understanding can lead to more effective countermeasures.
That's fascinating. This is all incredibly interesting, and it feels like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with these new approaches. Before we move on, I have to add about another intriguing concept mentioned in this research. Machine unlearning. Is this some kind of AI brainwashing technique?
Not quite. Machine unlearning is about selectively removing the influence of specific data from a trained model.
Got it.
It's becoming increasingly important for several reasons, including privacy concerns and improving AI safety.
So if someone wants their data removed from a model,
Right.
or if a model has learned something harmful or biased,
Exactly.
machine unlearning allows us to address those issues without having to retrain the entire model from scratch. That sounds incredibly useful, especially with the growing focus on data privacy.
Absolutely, and this research on privacy preservation through practical machine unlearning investigates the feasibility and effectiveness of various unlearning methods.
Okay.
It's an area with a lot of potential to address ethical and privacy concerns surrounding AI.
It's fascinating to see how all these different research areas are interconnected,
Yeah.
all contribute to a safer and more responsible AI landscape. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on something that stood out to me, the research on real-world cybersecurity concerns,
Right.
particularly those focused on older adults.
It's an important reminder that cybersecurity is not just about technology, it's about people.
Uh-huh.
And different groups of people have different needs and vulnerabilities when it comes to cybersecurity.
Right. And I mean, technology changes so rapidly, it can be tough for anyone to keep up. But for older adults who might not be as digitally native,
Right.
it can be especially challenging.
One paper, I'm 73, you can't expect me to have multiple passwords.
Oh, wow.
Password management concerns and solutions of Irish older adults.
Okay.
Dives into those very challenges. Their research found that managing multiple passwords is a major source of frustration for older adults.
That makes sense. I mean, who hasn't resorted to writing passwords down at some point?
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with sensitive information, that's obviously not ideal.
Exactly. The research highlights the need for more user-friendly and accessible security solutions for older adults,
Uh-huh.
such as encouraging the use of passphrases, providing clear guidance on password best practices, and exploring alternative authentication methods.
So it's about designing security solutions that work for everyone, regardless of their age or technical expertise.
Precisely. And this research on 2FA, navigating the challenges and solutions for inclusive access, makes a similar point,
Okay.
highlighting the need for inclusive design in two-factor authentication
Right.
to ensure that security measures are accessible to all users, including those with disabilities.
Two-factor authentication is a great example of a security measure that can be incredibly beneficial, but also incredibly frustrating if not implemented thoughtfully.
Right.
If you have a visual impairment or a motor disability, those authentication apps can be a real barrier to access.
That's right. The research found that the current landscape of 2FA is inconsistent when it comes to accessibility,
Okay.
with a lack of standardized options across different platforms.
That's disappointing to hear, but hopefully this research will help raise awareness and push for more inclusive design practices.
I agree, security and accessibility should go hand in hand. Everyone deserves to feel safe and empowered in the digital world.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive, but there's still much more to explore. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve into some other fascinating findings from this cutting-edge research. Okay, picking up where we left off, there's one research paper that really caught my eye. Crypto miner attack. GPU remote code execution attacks. It dives into how attackers are exploiting the very systems that are powering a lot of AI and machine learning GPUs.
Yeah, it's fascinating and a bit concerning to see how attackers are always adapting their techniques to target new technologies. GPUs with their parallel processing capabilities are incredibly powerful, but this research shows that they can also be vulnerable to exploitation.
The paper talks about attackers leveraging vulnerabilities in GPU-accelerated environments to deploy cryptocurrency miners. So they're not just stealing data or causing disruptions, they're hijacking computing power for their own financial gain.
It's a clever, albeit malicious, way to monetize their attacks. The high resource utilization and parallel processing nature of GPUs make these attacks particularly difficult to detect in real time.
So it's not just about having strong defenses, it's also about being able to detect and respond to these attacks quickly. What are researchers suggesting we do to protect ourselves?
So the research emphasizes a multi-layered approach.
Okay.
Proactive measures like static and model scanning can help identify potential exploits before they're even deployed. Think of it like having security checkpoints at various points in a building, rather than just relying on the front door lock.
Makes sense. But we also need to be prepared to respond effectively if an attack does occur. What are some of the reactive measures being explored?
Things like incident response planning, threat intelligence sharing, and continuous monitoring are crucial. It's about being able to quickly identify and contain an attack, minimizing the damage, and recovering swiftly.
It sounds like a combination of prevention, detection, and response is key to staying ahead of these evolving threats.
Absolutely, cybersecurity is a constantly evolving field, and we need to be adaptable and innovative to keep pace with the attackers.
Speaking of innovation, the paper Network Evasion Detection with BILSTM model dives into a new technique for detecting network evasion threats. This is about identifying malicious traffic that tries to sneak past security systems by disguising itself.
Right, network evasion is a classic tactic. Attackers are always trying to blend in and avoid detection.
Uh-huh.
This paper proposes using a deep learning network called a bidirectional long short-term memory, or BILSTM, to detect these threats.
Okay, I'm going to need a little help understanding that one. What is a BILSTM and how does it work in this context?
Think of a BIOSTM like a detective piecing together clues from a crime scene. It can analyze network traffic over time, looking for patterns and anomalies that might indicate malicious activity, even if the attacker is trying to mask their actions.
So it's not just looking at individual packets of data, it's analyzing the entire flow of traffic over time
Right.
to spot those subtle clues that might be missed by traditional security systems.
Exactly, and the researchers combined the BIOSTM with a classifier called softmax.
Okay.
It's essentially a way for the model to sort through the data and make a decision about whether a particular network flow is malicious or not.
It sounds like a very powerful tool for enhancing network security.
It shows great promise. The BIOSTM model achieved a high accuracy rate in detecting those network evasion threats, which is very encouraging.
That's great news. It seems like AI is becoming an increasingly valuable tool in the cybersecurity arsenal. But let's not forget about those fundamental protocols that underpin our networks. This paper, Dark Deceptions in DHCP, Dismantling Network Defenses, reminds us that even those basic building blocks can be vulnerable to attack.
You're talking about DHCP, the Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol.
Right.
It's responsible for assigning IP addresses to devices on a network, something we usually take for granted until it stops working.
Exactly. The paper highlights a range of attacks that target DHCP, from DHCP starvation to rogue DHCP servers and replay attacks.
Yeah, DHCP starvation is like flooding a restaurant with reservation requests so that no one else can get a table. Attackers flood the network with bogus requests, exhausting the available IP addresses and preventing legitimate devices from connecting.
And rogue DHCP servers are like setting up a fake taxi stand to lure unsuspecting passengers.
Right.
Attackers set up fake servers that hand out malicious IP addresses, potentially redirecting traffic to their own controlled systems.
It's a reminder that we need to secure not just our individual devices and applications,
Yeah.
but also those underlying network protocols that we often overlook.
The paper also mentions something called tunnel vision exploits. What are those all about?
Tunnel vision exploits target VPN connections,
Okay.
which are often used to enhance privacy and security. These exploits use DHCP to essentially decloak the user's real IP address, potentially exposing them to further attacks.
So it's like thinking you're safely hidden behind a disguise, only to have it suddenly ripped away, revealing your true identity.
It's a reminder that no security measure is foolproof, and we need to be constantly evaluating and updating our defenses to stay ahead of these evolving threats.
Okay, moving on to a completely different domain. The world of decentralized finance, or DeFi. This research paper, DeFi Scope, detecting various DeFi price manipulations with LLM reasoning, explores how AI can be used to detect market manipulation in this rapidly growing space.
Yeah, the DeFi space, with its decentralized nature and lack of traditional regulations, can be particularly vulnerable to manipulation. This research leverages the reasoning capabilities of large language models to identify the telltale signs of market manipulation in DeFi protocols.
So how does an LLM actually detect price manipulation? What kind of clues is it looking for?
The researchers trained a DeFi price-specific LLM
Okay.
using data synthesized from on-chain transactions.
Hmm.
This essentially teaches the LLM to recognize the patterns and behaviors associated with different types of price manipulation attacks.
It's like training a financial detective to spot those subtle discrepancies and anomalies that might indicate foul play.
The researchers found that their LLM-based approach, which they call DeFi Scope, outperformed existing approaches, achieving high precision and recall rates in detecting various types of price manipulation attacks.
That's a significant step forward in protecting the integrity of DeFi markets. It shows that AI can play a valuable role in ensuring fairness and transparency in this emerging financial landscape.
It's also an interesting example of how LLMs can be applied beyond their traditional uses in natural language processing and generation. Their ability to analyze complex data and identify patterns makes them powerful tools for a wide range of applications.
Speaking of LLMs and their diverse applications, another paper that caught our attention was leveraging large language models for cybersecurity, enhancing SMS spam detection with robust and context-aware text classification.
Ah, yes, the eternal battle against spam. This research focuses on using LLMs to detect spam in SMS messages,
Right.
which can be particularly challenging due to the short length and informal nature of these messages.
It's like trying to decipher a secret code hidden within a few short sentences. How are LLMs being used to crack that code?
The researchers evaluated various techniques, including bag of words and TF-IDF methods,
Okay.
along with different classification algorithms, to see which combination was most effective at identifying spam. They found that the TF-IDF method, which takes into account the frequency and importance of words in a document, consistently outperformed a bag of words approach.
So it's not just about looking for certain keywords, it's also about understanding the context and the relative importance of different words within a message.
Exactly, and they also found that certain classifiers, like naive Bayes and support vector machines, especially when combined with TF-IDFs, were particularly effective at accurately identifying spam messages.
It sounds like LLMs are giving those spam filters a much-needed boost. Maybe someday we'll finally be able to achieve inbox zero.
One can hope. But beyond the technical aspects of cybersecurity, it's important to remember that humans play a critical role as well.
Absolutely. Even with the most advanced technology, human error can still be a major factor in cybersecurity breaches. That's why education and training are so crucial.
This research paper, A Limited Technical Background is Sufficient for Attack Defense Tree Acceptability, dives into that very topic.
What are attack defense trees?
They are visual models used for analyzing and communicating security threats. Think of it like a flowchart that maps out the different ways an attacker might try to compromise a system and the different ways a defender might try to protect it.
Okay.
Right.
The research found that even individuals with limited technical backgrounds can effectively use attack defense trees to understand and mitigate security threats. This is great news because it means that we don't need to be cybersecurity experts to contribute to a more secure environment.
It highlights the importance of making cybersecurity education and training accessible to everyone, not just those with technical backgrounds. The more people we can empower with this knowledge, the better.
It's about building a culture of security where everyone understands their role in protecting themselves and the organizations they're a part of. But let's move on to another critical aspect of cybersecurity: data management.
Yeah, data management is often overlooked, but it's the foundation of a secure and resilient digital infrastructure. This paper, Data Protection Through Governance Frameworks, provides a great overview of how data governance frameworks can help organizations protect their sensitive information and maintain data security.
Data governance frameworks sound a bit complicated. Can you break it down for us?
Think of data governance frameworks, like a set of traffic laws for the data highway.
Okay.
They establish clear guidelines, policies, and processes for handling data responsibly throughout its life cycle. This helps ensure that data is used ethically and legally, while also protecting it from unauthorized access and misuse.
It makes sense you need rules of the road to keep things running smoothly and safely, whether it's actual traffic or the flow of data within an organization.
Exactly. The research delves into the key principles of data governance,
Mm-hmm.
including risk management, access controls, data quality assurance, and compliance with relevant regulations like GDPR, HIPAA, and CCPA.
So it's about more than just preventing data breaches.
Right.
It's about ensuring that data is used responsibly and in compliance with legal and ethical standards.
Precisely. And this next paper, User-Centric Data Management in Decentralized Internet of Behavior System, explores how blockchain technology can be used to create more secure and transparent data management systems, particularly in the context of the Internet of Behaviors, IOB.
The Internet of Behaviors. That sounds a bit ominous. What exactly is that?
The IOB is all about collecting and analyzing data about human behavior, often from various sources like smartphones, wearables, and smart home devices. While this data can be used for beneficial purposes, it also raises significant privacy concerns.
I can see why that would be a concern. The thought of all my actions and behaviors being tracked and analyzed feels a bit invasive.
That's why data governance and user control are so crucial in the IOB context. This research explores how blockchain, with its decentralized and transparent nature, can be used to empower individuals and give them more control over their data.
So how does blockchain help in this regard?
Well, blockchain's decentralized nature means that data isn't stored in one central location, making it more difficult for attackers to compromise.
Okay.
The use of cryptography ensures data integrity and authenticity.
It's like having a distributed network of security guards protecting the data, rather than just one single point of vulnerability.
Exactly. And the paper proposes a framework for user-centric data management in decentralized IOB systems, incorporating things like zero-knowledge proofs for identity authentication and privacy preservation.
Zero-knowledge proofs, those sound familiar. Didn't we talk about those earlier?
We did. Remember, zero-knowledge proofs allow someone to prove they possess certain information without revealing the information itself.
Uh-huh.
In this context, it would allow individuals to control access to their data without compromising their privacy.
So you could prove that you're over 21 without revealing your actual birth date.
That's a good analogy.
Okay.
It's a powerful tool for enabling data sharing while maintaining user control and privacy.
It sounds like blockchain and zero-knowledge proofs could be a game changer for data privacy in the IOB era. But let's shift gears for a moment to talk about something that's been looming on the horizon: the potential impact of quantum computing on cryptography.
It's a valid concern. Quantum computers, with their incredible processing power, could potentially crack some of our current encryption methods, which are based on mathematical problems that are difficult for classical computers to solve, but relatively easy for quantum computers.
So we need to start preparing for a post-quantum world,
Yeah.
developing new encryption methods that are resistant to quantum attacks. What's being done on that front?
This paper, a zero-knowledge proof for the syndrome decoding problem in the Lee metric, dives into a really interesting area of cryptography that's particularly relevant to post-quantum security.
Okay, I'm going to need a little help understanding that one. Can you explain it in simpler terms?
The syndrome decoding problem is a fundamental problem in coding theory that's closely related to cryptography.
Okay.
It's about finding the original message when you only have a noisy or corrupted version of it. The Lee metric is a specific way of measuring the distance between two vectors, which is relevant to how we encode and decode messages. This research explores how zero-knowledge proofs can be applied to the syndrome decoding problem in the Lee metric, potentially leading to new cryptographic tools that are resistant to quantum attacks.
It's like trying to build a fortress that can withstand a quantum cannonball.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's about anticipating future threats and developing solutions that will keep our data secure even in the face of these emerging technologies.
That's reassuring, but speaking of emerging technologies, let's circle back to AI and its impact on cybersecurity. We've talked about both the opportunities and the risks, but this research paper, MITRE ATT&CK Applications in Cybersecurity and the Way Forward, provides a valuable overview of how AI is being integrated with a widely used tool for understanding and mitigating cyber attacks: the MITRE ATT&CK framework.
Yeah, the MITRE ATT&CK framework is a knowledge base of adversary tactics and techniques based on real-world observations. It's essentially a playbook for cybersecurity professionals, helping them understand how attackers operate and develop effective defenses.
So it's like studying your opponent's fighting style to anticipate their next move. How is AI being used to enhance this framework?
Well, AI and machine learning are being integrated with the MITRE AT-TNCK framework to improve threat detection and response. For example, natural language processing can be used to analyze threat intelligence reports and identify patterns that might indicate an emerging attack. Machine learning models can be trained to predict and prevent attacks based on historical data.
It sounds like AI is giving cybersecurity professionals a significant advantage in this ongoing battle against cyber threats. But what about the potential for AI to be used for malicious purposes? This paper, Nuclear Deployed, Analyzing Catastrophic Risk in Decision-Making of Autonomous LLM Agents, dives into a really thought-provoking topic: the potential for autonomous LLM agents to make catastrophic decisions.
It's a sobering reminder that we need to be incredibly careful about how we develop and deploy AI, especially in high-stakes scenarios. The research highlights the potential for these agents to make decisions that could have unintended and potentially disastrous consequences.
It sounds like a plot straight out of a science fiction movie, but the researchers are taking this threat seriously, right?
Absolutely, they developed a three-stage evaluation framework to analyze the risks associated with autonomous LLM agents. Through a series of simulations, they found that even without malicious intent, these agents can sometimes exhibit behaviors that could lead to catastrophic outcomes.
It's a reminder that we need to build in safeguards and ethical considerations into the design of these systems. We can't just unleash powerful AI agents into the world without carefully considering the potential consequences.
It's about ensuring that AI remains a tool for good rather than a threat to humanity.
Well said. But let's move on to a slightly lighter topic: watermarking. Earlier, we discussed how watermarking can be used to protect intellectual property in AI-generated content. This paper, Image Watermarking of Generative Diffusion Models, explores how this technique can be applied to images created by those impressive AI models that can generate incredibly realistic images.
Yeah, generative diffusion models have made incredible strides in recent years.
Right.
The images they create are often indistinguishable from real photographs, which raises questions about ownership and authenticity.
So how does watermarking help in this context?
Watermarking allows creators to embed a hidden signature within the image, proving its origin and authenticity.
Uh-huh.
This research proposes a technique that embeds the watermark directly into the diffusion model itself,
Okay.
making it very difficult to remove or alter the watermark without degrading the image quality.
It's like embedding a digital fingerprint within the image. But what about watermarking other types of AI-generated content, like code?
That's a great question, and this paper, Is the Watermarking of LLM-Generated Code Robust?, dives into that very topic.
What did they find? Is it possible to effectively watermark code generated by LLMs?
The research highlights the challenges of making those watermarks robust and resistant to tampering. Even seemingly minor changes to the code, like renaming variables or inserting extraneous code, can effectively erase the watermark without changing the functionality of the code.
So it's like finding a way to erase those digital fingerprints we were just talking about.
Exactly. It's an ongoing challenge, and the research emphasizes the need for more robust watermarking techniques that can withstand various code transformations.
It's a reminder that we need to constantly adapt and innovate to stay ahead of those trying to circumvent security measures.
Speaking of adaptation and innovation, let's talk about honeypots. This research paper, HoneyGPT, Breaking the Trilemma in Terminal Honeypots with Large Language Model, introduces a really interesting concept using ChatGPT to create a more sophisticated and engaging honeypot. Yeah, honeypots are essentially decoy systems designed to attract attackers and gather intelligence about their tactics. Traditionally, honeypots have struggled to strike a balance between flexibility, interaction depth, and deception.
What do you mean by that?
Honeypots need to be flexible enough to respond to a variety of attacker actions, but they also need to be engaging enough to hold the attacker's attention and gather valuable information.
Oh.
And of course, they need to be convincing enough that the attacker doesn't realize they're interacting with a fake system.
So how does ChatGPT help solve this trilemma?
Well, ChatGPT, with its advanced conversational abilities and ability to adapt to different scenarios, is a perfect candidate for creating more sophisticated and engaging honeypots. The researchers developed a structured prompt engineering framework that incorporates chain-of-thought tactics to improve long-term memory and enhance the honeypot's deceptive capabilities.
So they're essentially giving the honeypot a personality, making it more believable and engaging for the attacker.
Exactly. They found that HoneyGPT, as they call it, was able to engage attackers more deeply and gather a wider range of information about their tactics than traditional honeypots.
It's a fascinating example of how LLMs are being applied in unexpected ways to enhance cybersecurity. We've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive. Let's take a short break and come back for the final part, where we'll wrap up our exploration of this cutting-edge research and consider what it all means for the future of cybersecurity and AI. Okay, well, let's jump back into this fascinating world of cybersecurity and AI. It's amazing how these two fields are so deeply intertwined these days.
They really are, and as we delve deeper into this research, a recurring theme is the increasing importance of privacy and data protection in this age of AI advancement.
It feels like finding that balance, right?
Yeah,
Between enabling innovation while safeguarding individual privacy is paramount. This paper, Criteo Private Ad, a real-world bidding dataset to design private advertising systems, tackles this very issue in the context of advertising.
yeah, the advertising industry relies heavily on data collection and targeted advertising, which often raises privacy concerns. The researchers behind this paper have released a large-scale dataset called Criteo Private Ad. It's based on anonymized real-world bidding data from a leading ad tech company.
So they're essentially providing researchers and developers with a safe space to experiment with different privacy-enhancing technologies.
Exactly. This dataset can be used to train and evaluate machine learning models that can deliver targeted advertising while respecting user privacy. It's a valuable resource for anyone working towards building more ethical and privacy-conscious advertising systems.
It's great to see these kinds of initiatives that bridge the gap between the needs of the industry and the privacy rights of individuals. But what about the broader challenge of ensuring privacy in AI systems beyond just advertising?
Well, that's where this next paper comes in. DP Memark, Differential Privacy Transfer Learning for Memory-Efficient Language Models, explores techniques for enhancing privacy in large language models.
You know, we've talked about some of the potential risks of LLMs, but they're clearly here to stay. So how do we make them more trustworthy and privacy respecting?
This research focuses on two key aspects: reducing the memory footprint of LLMs and protecting user data privacy during training. They introduce a framework called DP Memark, which incorporates differential privacy and memory-efficient architectures.
Can you unpack those concepts for us? Differential privacy and memory-efficient architectures, those sound pretty complex.
So differential privacy is a method for adding noise to data to protect individual privacy while still allowing for useful analysis. Think of it like blurring faces in a photo to protect people's identities, but still allowing you to see the overall scene.
Okay, so they're adding noise to the training data to protect privacy without compromising the model's ability to learn.
Exactly, and by using memory-efficient architectures, they can reduce the amount of data the model needs to store, making it more efficient and less resource-intensive.
So they're essentially killing two birds with one stone. They're making LLMs both more private and more efficient.
That's right.
That's impressive. But with all this talk about AI and data, we can't ignore the potential for bias and discrimination.
You're absolutely right. AI systems are only as good as the data they're trained on. And if that data reflects existing biases, those biases can be amplified by the AI.
It's like that old saying, garbage in, garbage out. If you feed an AI biased data, you're going to get biased results.
This paper, Trustworthy AI on Safety, Bias, and Privacy, a survey, provides a comprehensive overview of this challenge. It highlights the importance of addressing spurious biases, which are correlations in the data that don't reflect real-world relationships.
So it's about making sure that the AI isn't making decisions based on irrelevant or misleading correlations in the data.
Exactly. The paper explores techniques for mitigating bias in AI systems, from carefully curating training data to developing algorithms that are more robust to spurious correlations.
It's encouraging to see that researchers are actively working on these issues, striving to make AI systems more trustworthy and equitable. You know, throughout this deep dive, something that's been on my mind is the importance of the human element in all of this.
That's a vital point. Technology is just one piece of the puzzle. Human behavior and decision-making play a crucial role in cybersecurity, both in terms of creating vulnerabilities and in developing solutions.
Yeah, you can have the most sophisticated security systems in place, but they're only as strong as the people using them. Human error, negligence, or even malicious intent can easily undermine even the strongest defenses.
But on the other hand, human ingenuity and creativity are also essential for staying ahead of those evolving threats. We need skilled cybersecurity professionals who can think critically, adapt to new challenges, and develop innovative solutions.
It's a constant game of cat and mouse between attackers and defenders. And it's not just about having the right technical skills, it's also about having the right mindset, a security-conscious culture, and a willingness to learn and adapt.
This research has highlighted the importance of education and training, not just for technical experts, but for everyone. We need to empower people to understand the risks and make informed decisions about their digital lives.
We've explored a wide range of topics in this deep dive, from the latest attack techniques to the cutting-edge defenses being developed. It's clear that the world of cybersecurity and AI is constantly evolving, and staying informed is more crucial than ever.
It's an exciting time to be following these fields. The pace of innovation is incredible, and the challenges are significant. But one thing is certain: the future of cybersecurity will be shaped by the interplay between human ingenuity and artificial intelligence.
Well said. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the latest cybersecurity and AI research. We hope you found it insightful and engaging. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay secure. 8 TSAI